The morning sun peeked through the tall windows of the Jefferson County Courthouse, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. Judge Richard Bennett walked through the main entrance at exactly 8:15 a.m. Just like he had done every weekday for the past 15 years. His shoes made a clicking sound against the floor as he moved with purpose, nodding briefly to the security guards who knew better than to stop him for the usual checks. At 58 years old, Judge Bennett carried himself with the confidence of someone who knew his place in the world. His silver hair was always perfectly combed, his black robes pressed without a single wrinkle, and his reputation for running a strict courtroom was well known throughout the county. His secretary, Mrs. Thompson, often joked that you could set your watch by his morning routine. "Good morning, Your Honor," Mrs. Thompson called out as he passed her desk. She was already busy sorting through the day's cases, her desktop covered with manila folders. "Good morning, Mrs. Thompson," Judge Bennett replied with a slight smile. "Anything interesting on the docket today?" Mrs. Thompson shuffled through her papers. "Nothing out of the ordinary, sir, though there is one stop sign violation that's been requested for a full hearing rather than just paying the ticket." Judge Bennett frowned. He disliked when people wasted the court's time challenging simple traffic violations. In his mind, if you got a ticket, you probably deserved it. "Who's the officer who wrote the ticket?" he asked, taking a sip from his morning coffee. "Officer Mike Parker," Mrs. Thompson replied, knowing the judge would recognize the name. Parker was known for being one of the most reliable officers in the department. "Parker's a good man," Judge Bennett nodded approvingly. Never known him to write an unfair ticket. He walked into his chambers, setting his briefcase down on the large mahogany desk that had been passed down through 3 generations of judges. The morning light filtered through the Venetian blinds, highlighting the numerous awards and certificates that covered his walls. Each one was perfectly aligned. Just like everything else in Judge Bennett's world, he took pride in the order he maintained both in his personal space and his courtroom. As he settled into his leather chair, he began his daily ritual of reviewing case files. The morning docket was indeed full, but nothing he couldn't handle efficiently. He prided himself on running a tight ship, keeping his courtroom moving like a well-oiled machine. Most days, he could clear 30 cases before lunch. "Your Honor," Mrs. Thompson's voice came through the intercom. "The first cases are ready and the courtroom is prepared." Judge Bennett stood up, adjusting his robes in the full-length mirror near his door. He straightened his tie and checked his appearance one final time. Presentation mattered in his courtroom. It was part of maintaining the dignity of the law. Walking through the private corridor that led to his courtroom, he could hear the usual morning bustle through the heavy wooden doors. The bailiff's voice carried through, instructing people to rise as he entered. This was the moment he loved most about his day, the respect, the authority, the order of it all. As he stepped onto the raised platform where his bench sat, everyone in the courtroom stood. The morning sun now streamed through the high windows, making the polished wood surfaces gleam. Judge Bennett took his seat, adjusted his microphone, and looked out at the gathering of people before him. "Be seated," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of his position. The shuffling sound of people sitting filled the room, followed by complete silence. This was his domain, his kingdom of law and order, where his word was final. Little did Judge Bennett know that this ordinary Tuesday would be different from any other day in his 15 years on the bench. As he began calling the first cases, he had no idea that his carefully ordered world was about to be shaken to its core and that this day would change not only his perspective but his entire approach to justice. Judge Richard Bennett straightened his robes and prepared to enter the courtroom. It was now 8:30 a.m., and the morning docket was about to commence. He could hear the murmur of voices through the door, defendants, lawyers, and court officers all getting ready for another day of legal proceedings. Mrs. Thompson handed him his gavel, and he took a moment to straighten the family photos on his desk, a routine that gave him a sense of stability before facing the day's cases. At exactly 8:35 a.m., Judge Bennett's voice boomed through the courtroom as he entered. The familiar words washed over him as he took his seat at the bench, looking out over the gathered crowd. The faces before him were diverse, young and old, from different races and backgrounds, but Bennett saw them all the same way: cases to be processed, decisions to be made, justice to be served. The first few cases proceeded as usual: speeding tickets, parking violations, running red lights. Bennett moved through them quickly, rarely letting defendants ramble on with excuses. By 10 a.m., he had already processed 20 cases, most ending with guilty pleas and standard fines. The judge prided himself on running an efficient courtroom. His colleagues often joked that you could set your watch by his proceedings. Case number 2847, State vs. Michelle Carter. The bailiff called out. A well-dressed woman in her mid-40s stood up from the third row and walked to the front of the courtroom. She wore a cream-colored business suit and carried a leather briefcase. Her dark hair styled neatly. She had an air of quiet confidence, which caught Bennett's attention. Ms. Carter, Judge Bennett began, glancing down at the file in front of him. You are charged with running a stop sign at the intersection of Maple and 4th Street on September 15th. How do you plead? Not guilty, Your Honor, Michelle replied, her voice steady. Several people in the courtroom straightened in their seats, noting the unusual combination of her title and presence in traffic court. Officer Mike Parker, who had written the ticket, stood at the prosecutor's table. He shifted uncomfortably, glancing between Michelle and his notes. Something about her composed demeanor made him second-guess his memory of that day. Officer Parker, please present your evidence, Judge Bennett commanded. Still not making eye contact with Michelle, the officer cleared his throat. Yes, Your Honor, on the morning in question, at approximately 8:45 a.m., I observed Ms. Carter's vehicle approaching the stop sign at Maple and 4th. In my judgment, the vehicle did not come to a complete stop before proceeding through the intersection. Michelle raised her hand politely. Your Honor, may I present my evidence? Judge Bennett waved his hand dismissively. Go ahead then, make it quick, we have a full docket today. Opening her briefcase, Michelle removed several documents and a small USB drive. I have here the dashcam footage from my vehicle. Your Honor, I installed it last year for precisely these types of situations. Additionally, I have printed screenshots showing my vehicle coming to a complete stop. For the first time that morning, Judge Bennett looked directly at Michelle. His eyebrows raised slightly at her preparedness, but his expression remained stern. Bailiff, please set up the video evidence, Bennett ordered. As they waited for the technical setup, Michelle continued, I would also like to point out that the stop sign in question was partially obscured by overgrown branches, making it difficult to see. Judge Bennett's interest peaked, but he maintained his authoritative tone. We will review the evidence, he said, tapping his fingers impatiently on the bench. The video footage played on the courtroom screen, clearly showing Michelle's vehicle coming to a complete stop at the intersection. The printed screenshots corroborated her claim, and the overgrown branches were evident in the footage. Judge Bennett leaned back in his chair, a slight frown on his face. Officer Parker, do you have any additional evidence to present? Officer Parker shifted uncomfortably. No, Your Honor, the footage appears to support Ms. Carter's claim. Bennett took a moment to process the information. The courtroom was silent, all eyes on him. He cleared his throat. In light of the evidence presented, the court finds that Ms. Carter did come to a complete stop at the intersection. The stop sign's visibility was indeed compromised. Therefore, the ticket is dismissed. A murmur of surprise rippled through the courtroom. Michelle nodded respectfully. Thank you, Your Honor, she said simply. As she gathered her documents and left the courtroom, Judge Bennett watched her go with a newfound sense of respect. The incident had shaken him, forcing him to confront the biases that had quietly influenced his judgments for years. He realized that being a good judge wasn't just about efficiency and upholding the law, it was also about fairness and self-awareness. The rest of the day passed uneventfully, but Bennett couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed. He knew that he needed to reevaluate how he approached his cases and ensure that justice was truly being served in his courtroom. Judge Richard Bennett sat in his chambers, the events of the morning replaying in his mind. The case of Michelle Carter had been a wake-up call, challenging his long-held beliefs about efficiency and justice. As he stared at the neatly arranged case files on his desk, he couldn't help but reflect on how his routine and biases might have influenced his judgments over the years. That afternoon, Bennett approached each case with renewed vigilance, making a conscious effort to listen more carefully and consider each defendant's circumstances. He knew that maintaining the integrity of his courtroom required more than just strict adherence to the law. It required empathy and understanding. Later that day, as the courtroom buzzed with activity, Bennett noticed a young man standing nervously at the defendant's table. His name was Jamal Davis, and he was charged with disorderly conduct. The charge stemmed from a heated argument in a public park, but there were conflicting accounts of what had happened. Jamal Davis, Bennett called, glancing at the file before him. You're charged with disorderly conduct. How do you plead? Not guilty, Your Honor, Jamal replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Bennett leaned forward, sensing the young man's anxiety. "Tell me what happened, Mr. Davis." Jamal took a deep breath and began to explain. He had been arguing with another man over a misunderstanding, but things had escalated when bystanders intervened. Jamal maintained that he had not started the confrontation and that he had tried to de-escalate the situation. As Jamal spoke, Bennett observed him closely. The young man's demeanor suggested sincerity, but Bennett knew he needed more information. He called upon the witnesses to testify and listen intently to their accounts. One by one, the witnesses described the incident, painting a picture of a situation that had quickly spiraled out of control. Some supported Jamal's version of events, while others claimed he had been the aggressor. The conflicting testimonies made it clear that the truth lay somewhere in between. Bennett took a moment to weigh the evidence. In the past, he might have made a snap judgment, but now he approached the decision with greater care. He realized that Jamal's future hinged on the outcome of this case. "Mr. Davis," Bennett began, choosing his words carefully, "the evidence presented here is conflicting, but I believe there is room for understanding and compassion. I am placing you on probation, during which you must attend anger management classes and perform community service. This will be your opportunity to prove that you can handle conflicts in a more constructive manner." Jamal's eyes filled with relief and gratitude. "Thank you, Your Honor. I won't let you down." As Jamal left the courtroom, Bennett felt a sense of satisfaction. He had made a decision that upheld the law while also giving a young man a chance to learn and grow. It was a balance that he was beginning to understand was essential to true justice. That evening, Bennett shared his reflections with Mrs. Thompson. "Today's cases have reminded me of the importance of looking beyond the surface," he said. "We often deal with people at their lowest points, and it's crucial that we approach each case with empathy." Mrs. Thompson nodded, her eyes reflecting her admiration. "Your approach today made a real difference, Your Honor. It's inspiring to see you embracing this change." As the days turned into weeks, Bennett continued to apply his newfound perspective to his work. He initiated several reforms within the courthouse, such as reviewing policies that might inadvertently contribute to biased judgments and encouraging his colleagues to adopt similar practices. He also started mentoring younger judges, sharing his experiences and the importance of fairness and empathy in their roles. One afternoon, a letter arrived at Bennett's chambers. It was from Michelle Carter. "Dear Judge Bennett, I wanted to express my gratitude for how you handled my case. Your willingness to consider the evidence and dismiss the ticket meant a great deal to me. It was a reminder of the importance of fairness and justice in our legal system. Your actions have inspired me to continue advocating for improvements in how cases are handled, particularly those involving minor offenses. Thank you for setting an example of what it means to be a fair and just judge. Sincerely, Michelle Carter." Bennett felt a surge of appreciation as he read the letter. It was a validation of the changes he had made and a reminder of the positive ripple effects that fairness and integrity could create. With each passing day, Bennett's courtroom became a place where justice was not only served but truly understood. His approach had shifted from one of strict efficiency to one of thoughtful consideration, ensuring that every case was treated with the respect and attention it deserved. The weeks that followed saw a noticeable change in Judge Richard Bennett's courtroom. His experiences with Michelle Carter and Jamal Davis had left a lasting impression, prompting him to approach each case with a renewed sense of empathy and fairness. He was determined to ensure that his courtroom was a place where justice was not only served but also understood and respected. Bennett's colleagues began to notice his transformation. They observed how he took the time to listen to each defendant, carefully weighing the evidence and considering the broader context of their actions. His reputation for being strict and efficient evolved into one of being thoughtful and just. One morning, a case came before Judge Bennett that would test his commitment to his new approach. A woman named Lisa Matthews stood at the defendant's table, charged with shoplifting. She was in her early 30s, with tired eyes and a weary expression that spoke of hardship. "Lisa Matthews, you are charged with shoplifting from a local grocery store. How do you plead?" Bennett asked, his tone firm but compassionate. "Not guilty, Your Honor," Lisa replied, her voice barely audible. "Tell me what happened," Bennett encouraged, sensing her distress. Lisa took a deep breath and explained that she had recently lost her job and was struggling to provide for her 2 young children. Desperate and with no other options, she had taken a few items of food from the store. She knew it was wrong, but her children were hungry, and she felt she had no choice. As Lisa spoke, Bennett felt a pang of sympathy. He asked the store manager, who was present as a witness, to testify. The manager confirmed that Lisa had taken the items but also mentioned that she had immediately apologized when caught and had shown genuine remorse. Bennett took a moment to reflect on the situation. He knew that a harsh punishment would not address the root of the problem. Instead, he decided to approach the case with compassion and understanding. "Miss Matthews," Bennett began, "while shoplifting is a serious offense, I understand the difficult circumstances that led to your actions. I am placing you on probation, during which you must attend a financial management course and complete community service at a local food bank. This will provide you with the support you need while also giving back to the community." Tears well up in Lisa's eyes. "Thank you, Your Honor. I promise to do my best." As she left the courtroom, Bennett felt a sense of fulfillment. He had made a decision that balanced justice with empathy, providing Lisa with a path to redemption rather than simply punishing her. That evening, Bennett shared the day's events with Mrs. Thompson. "Today's case reminded me of the importance of seeing the person behind the crime," he said. "We must address the underlying issues that lead people to make desperate choices." Mrs. Thompson nodded, her expression one of pride. "Your actions today have made a real difference, Your Honor. It's clear that your approach is bringing about positive change." As the months passed, Bennett continued to implement reforms within the courthouse. He advocated for programs that provided defendants with the resources they needed to overcome their challenges and reintegrate into society. He also encouraged his colleagues to adopt a more compassionate approach, emphasizing the importance of empathy in their judgments. One day, a letter arrived at Bennett's chambers. It was from Jamal Davis. "Dear Judge Bennett, I wanted to thank you for the opportunity you gave me. Attending anger management classes and performing community service has helped me become a better person. I have learned to handle conflicts constructively and have found a new job that I love. Your fairness and understanding changed my life. Sincerely, Jamal Davis." Bennett felt a profound sense of gratitude as he read the letter. It was a testament to the impact that thoughtful and empathetic justice could have on individuals' lives. With each passing day, Bennett's courtroom became a place where justice was not only administered but also truly understood and respected. His journey from a strict, efficiency-driven judge to a compassionate, fair-minded one was a testament to the power of reflection and growth. Eleanor often reminded him of the impact he was making. "Harold, you are not just upholding the law, you are restoring faith in the justice system. Your actions inspire others to believe that true justice is about understanding and compassion." Bennett knew that his work was far from over, but he embraced each day with a renewed sense of purpose. He was grateful for the opportunity to make a difference and to be a force for good in the world. And so, Judge Richard Bennett's story became one of transformation, resilience, and the enduring power of justice served with empathy and integrity. I hope you enjoyed the conclusion of the story. If you need any further adjustments or have additional requests, feel free to let me know.